Hello, this is the Shine Bright team call. It is Wednesday, October 10th. We are almost halfway through the month. Actually, we're like a third of the way through the month, like basically exactly a third of the way through the month. So we still have plenty of time to reach goals, etc., etc. I don't know if you guys have listened to the National Wake Up Call yet from this week, but it was fabulous. I am so glad I finally learned how to say Ashley's last name, Ashley Field Dyson. She leads Team Elevate. You can actually go and look her up on YouTube, and her team calls are amazing, absolutely unreal. Their team is crushing it. Kate Morgan is one of her coaches. Kate started last November and is a 6-star diamond coach as of today. So her goal is 15-star by Thanksgiving, which is absolutely incredible. If you still want to go on the diamond retreat, there's obviously plenty of time to hit diamond, which is coming up, by the way. That deadline is, I believe, Thanksgiving Day. So if you want to be on that diamond retreat, you need to be a diamond by Thanksgiving and maintain it. Remember, diamond is 4 personally sponsored coaches on each leg, 1 emerald on each leg. That is totally doable. All of your other coaches can totally be discount coaches, so no stress there. Apologize for the naked face. I washed my hair for the first time in 4 days today, so that is what you're getting. So tonight, anyways, I started on the National Wake Up Call, and it was all about telling your story. And I was like, okay, like I've been like drawing from an empty well on my posts lately. Like I just haven't really known what to post, and nothing feels good. And I didn't want to like plan my posts. That never felt right to me. It always felt really weird. But after this call on Monday, I'm like, ooh, I can do like a loose planning of my posts. Like I'm looking at my calendar right now, and it says I'm going to do tonight I was supposed to do a breadcrumb post, coaching post. Yesterday I was supposed to do a story. I ended up flipping those. Tomorrow I'm going to do a money story. Everything's going to be a story basically, or a breadcrumb, because I really am excited about recruiting kick-ass coaches to our team. So that's where my energy's at right now. I really want to add some badass coaches, so I've got to do lots and lots of storytelling. But honestly, this works for challengers too, obviously. So the first thing that we need to do is discover our story. Okay, so I'm almost done with this book, A Tribe Called Bliss. I'm gonna read like a short little segment out of it, because as I was reading it today, I was like, holy shit, this is exactly what I'm talking about on the team call. So I'm just gonna read this like short little snippet. It's titled, What is a Story? A story is our account of an event that took place, aka a memory file we pull from whenever we go to make a decision. These stories say our past is in control of our present. Many of us can recall bad memories from our past, but instead of seeing these memories as singular occurrences from which we learn, we turn our past circumstances into our present identity. This identity then becomes the story of who we are, and the story becomes a belief. These beliefs then become our identity and our future. So if the story is, I've never been able to lose weight before, why should I be able to do it now? That becomes your identity as somebody that cannot lose weight, as somebody that is constantly trying to lose weight. That becomes your story. Your story becomes your belief. So you really believe, I cannot lose weight, and that is going to stay your future. Whereas if you flip it and you pull like those positive memories as like for me, one that comes to mind is like making extra income. So one of the things that I have started to tell myself and create as my belief in my story is, I always make extra money somehow. Like today we got a $350 check that we forgot we were supposed to get from like 3 months ago. That's amazing. So because I've made that my story, like I'm always receiving money. That's my story now. That's my memory, is of receiving money in times of need, or receiving money randomly almost, you know? And so that's become my story. It's become my belief, and that's become my identity. I'm somebody that attracts money. So whatever it is for you, make it your own. Make it your own thing. So how do we discover what that thing is, though? And there's lots of things. I've been doing a lot of journaling on my own personal story on my whiteboard. I've got my story written up there. So in the middle, I have the word story, and then I have a bunch of branches of like memories that come up when I think about like my story. But these are some questions that you can ask yourself to discover your story. Now, these are a lot of, negative questions. Like they're gonna, like they are just it's like what you would ask yourself. But I think that these negative stories are actually truly positive stories. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So if you're like, I don't know where to start, let's start here, okay? So who do you think you are to do that? Why would you try that? You're not smart enough. You're not worthy. What if they find out you don't know all the answers? It never worked out before and it won't work out now. Don't get your hopes up. So what are the circumstances that surround, and y'all, I don't want you to say these to yourself, obviously. These are just to help you start to identify those emotional triggers, the things that bring up memories, the things that are going to help you build your story. Okay, because really, I think our most powerful stories come in the form of a lesson, and a lesson comes in the form of something not working out in our favor. Would you agree? So obviously, if we're thinking these thoughts, something hasn't worked out in our favor, and we're being taught something. Okay, so you can ask yourself these questions and see what comes to mind. Another way to do it is I just started like thinking about topics. Like I have very vivid memories of my childhood. So like one of the things that I identified with for so long and still sometimes slip back into was fear and scarcity. So what I did in my journal is I wrote fear and scarcity, and then I just started like word vomiting all over my journal. Like I remember being sad and scared of money. I remember this one time I watched a boy drop his ice cream cone and I cried, not because I was sad for the little boy, but because I was sad for the parent that lost $2.50 because that boy dropped his ice cream cone. You know, so I started thinking of all of that sort of thing. Or like attention. Oh my gosh. I wrote attention because I remember as a kid, I always tried out for the talent show in elementary school, and I absolutely loved the spotlight. I loved attention, but that came with a lot of negative talk from adults. And honestly, that negative talk lasted longer than the positivity that came from putting myself out there, because the negative stuff was so much louder. And so I then can take that story and flip it to say like, well, I rewrote my story. Like the whole world told me that I was too loud. I was too much. I enjoyed the spotlight too much. That made me selfish. I never met a mirror I didn't like. My parents used to say that to me all the time, and they still do. Like, fuck that, who cares? I'm not allowed to look at myself in the mirror. I'm not allowed to like what I see. Yeah, so I was just able to like kind of flip these stories. And with each of these topics that start to come to mind, you can probably find several memories in your bank, and there's a story there. And you can turn that into something positive. So one of the things, and I'm looking at my board here, let's go back to that money example from when I was a kid and I watched this boy drop his ice cream cone, and I must have been like 6 or 7, maybe 8 years old, and I was distraught because of the money that parent lost because that child dropped their ice cream cone. Like that literally made me sick to my stomach. I can vividly remember my parents telling me, we're not going to the fair this year because it's a waste of money and we don't have any money to waste. Like I can remember what that felt like. I can feel that gut punch. I can feel the nausea that comes with that. I can feel the like the emotional pain and the lack of control, honestly, that came with those feelings. That's what it felt like. So if you can find that memory and connect it to a feeling, and then talk about how that feeling like brought you to where you are in your adult life, and how you overcame or are overcoming that and turning it into something positive. Okay, if you can just, I'm not saying your whole world has to be like fucking rainbows and unicorns and sunshine all the time. I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying that you can take those negative stories and turn them into something positive, every single thing. And if you're not there for some stories yet, that's okay. You can share those too. Okay, you can say like, this is something I'm working on. Here's what I'm doing to combat it. And I'm aware of it, or whatever, anything like that. So the goal is to take these memories and these stories and put them in your social media, because people love stories. People like, that's why people watch Instagram stories, because they want to follow along with your day. Like, I am always on Instagram stories. My boss is like, why are you taking a picture of your food? Why are you talking to your Instagram about what you ate for breakfast this morning? I'm like, I don't know, because people like this. And he's like, I don't get it. And I was like, me neither, but people like a story. And he's like, but it's not interesting. It doesn't, I'm still telling a story. So, I mean, older people don't really get it, but it's fine. What you need to do is share stories. And my new goal is to share 3 stories a week. 3 stories a week. When I don't know what to share, I'm going to share a story. Okay. And all of it is going to be like the one that I posted this morning was a story. So I have my memory board up in my office. I'm going to take one of those topics. So like my topics are, I came from lack. I was successful in my job and at the top of my field. I was content with life. I had no consistency in my health and eating habits. I had very little outside of work, or I always had just enough to get by. So those are like my topics that I can talk about. And I swear for each of those topics, I probably have 3 or 4 different stories, okay, from my childhood. And I can then talk about how that shaped me and how I've chosen to change that around, and how I've chosen to grow from it, how I've chosen to rewrite my own story. Okay, so like at the end of my post today, I encouraged my readers to rewrite their own story. Okay, so that's something that you can do. That story adds so much value. It's not like a, hey, look at me, look what I did thing. It's stories are something that people can relate to. People join this business because they see part of themselves in your story. They see part of their story in your story. They don't join this business because they love Shakeology, because they love workouts, or because they want to make a lot of money. They join this business because they see part of themselves in your story. Okay, if you're just posting sweaty selfies, like a sweaty selfie, once or twice a week, totally fine. But if you're posting a sweaty selfie with a story, that is going to gain you so much more engagement, so much more credibility. It is going to give your readers so much more value. You gain so much, and your readers gain so much by reading a story. Okay? And honestly, it's kind of therapeutic. I really like it. And I don't share anything on social media that I wouldn't share with my boss, so I don't have a problem sharing this stuff. So you have to share it. You have to share your story. This is how you build connections, and connections build teams, and teams build income. If you want to make money in this business, you have to start writing a story. You have to start sharing a story. A lot of us have a story, and either you don't know what it is or you're unwilling to share it. And I promise you that until you are willing to share it, you will not build connections on social media, and you will not get to build your business the way that you want to. Okay. So the whole point of this conversation is to take your story. Discover your story. Do some journaling. Do some meditation. Do answer those questions that I read to you out of this book. Maybe read a book. Honestly, I read Girl Wash Your Face, and that brought up so much for me that I like that really helped me dig into my story a little bit more. So even just reading can help you find something in your story and your memory bank that was kind of hidden before. And then turn it into something positive. Again, I'm not saying it has to be sunshine and rainbows all the time, but I am saying there is something to learn from everything, okay? There is something to learn from every story. Turn it into something positive, write it out, and share it. Share the crap out of it. Because that story is what's going to attract people to you, and that's what's going to build an income in this business. If you want to build an income, you have to make connections. If you want to make connections, you have to share your story. There's a lot of ways to share your story, obviously. I like going live. If I feel really passionate about a certain topic, I'll go live on Facebook. You literally can't screw it up. So if you're scared to go live on Facebook, don't be. Just do it. Okay. Same for Instagram. I don't really like Instagram Live. I'd rather do an IGTV and then post a link, but that's totally up to you. I just don't get a lot of traction on IG Live. I'd rather do a Facebook Live. And then obviously your posts. And then you can actually share like small parts of your story in your Instagram stories, obviously. So that would be how I would go about doing all of that. Yeah. So are there any questions? I'm going to unmute you guys, leave it recording in case anyone has questions or comments or anything like that.
Are you bringing my brush?
It's some raw shit that we.
Sorry, Hannah.
That's okay.